What spurred you to get involved in the Academy of Innovation?
Stayed in the Academy of Innovation for roughly 10 years. Initially, got involved through Professor Laton and Professor Izio,
Okay.
where they were putting together sessions on uh, basically tips and tricks for new innovators based upon past experiences where things may have gone very poorly versus well, to try to streamline the journey for new entrepreneurs.
What do you see as some of the bigger barriers when you are talking to innovators? What do you wish to convey?
It can be a very daunting journey for people that have a new invention or are wanting to start their own company. And they're often anxious in regards to meeting with large corporations or even smaller mid-size. And so we're always excited to hear new ideas. Our first priority is protecting the ideas of innovators and entrepreneurs so that they can come to us in a comfortable environment, share their thoughts, and if there's an opportunity for a partnership. If not, we're always happy to provide friendly advice to help them be successful. Because our collective goal is to provide value to patients and the healthcare system. And whether we can do that in a partnership or they do that on their own, it's the best thing for the patients.
What is the right time to engage innovators in a conversation?
The right time is to engage early. What we also always encourage inventors and entrepreneurs to do is ensure they've protected their intellectual property. And we work hard to protect it as well. But once they've got the foundational intellectual property filed and they're starting to think about where they go from here, I encourage early conversations with corporations that might eventually be the exit for the company. There's many of us that are very happy to provide advice along the way and help them to avoid missteps that they might otherwise encounter. And as we're looking at partnerships, it's important that they can clearly articulate the clinical opportunity. And so we often discuss that with them. What's the unique opportunity associated with their idea? Second, what risk remains? They'll often hesitate in facing the really difficult challenges with developing a product instead of burning down the risk early. And the longer you wait on that, the more time you waste and more energy. And then finally, the final piece is, what is the economic value associated with it? And it should always provide incremental clinical value as the top priority, and then monetizing that is important as well. But they should always be thinking about clinical value first, what risk needs to be burned down, and then worry about the economics later. If there's clear clinical value with an opportunity, there's usually a way to monetize that and have it make sense for further development, running clinical trials, and eventually bringing it forward as a product. But I always encourage people to think about the clinical value. And if it's unique and radical, then there's likely a pathway to bring it to patients. I think the biggest challenge is there are so many good ideas. And I'm an engineer by training, an inventor. And one of the things I tell individuals that are bringing an idea forward is the ones that really catch my attention are the instances where I think to myself, I really wish I'd thought of that. What a great idea. And the ideas that are often the simplest and in hindsight are relatively obvious are oftentimes the winners, where you're not using tremendously exotic materials or technologies, but it's something that's really smart, clever, and provides strong value. And so that the biggest challenge is so many good ideas, but you often trust your instincts as to what's really interesting and exciting, and then those tend to get more attention.
We are witnessing a widespread confluence of a multitude of devices, tools, and technology coming together. What is the best way to innovate today?
The foundation to all of this is really understanding unmet clinical needs. So if any of these innovators encourage them to spend a lot of time in the clinical environment, get familiar with what the challenges are, and then have a broad network of people with different areas of expertise and from different disciplines. Because you may have something that's readily used and well known in one field that can be applied to another. And those are often the things that are the easiest to get to market and can bring value to patients in the shortest timeline.
What are your thoughts on bringing together different stakeholders who are involved in the innovation process?
The greatest innovations we've seen in medical devices have come in partnerships between physicians and engineers, where they, as one of my mentors always told me, they should be on a first name basis with one another. So they're really comfortable discussing what the issues are, where the opportunities are. And the great example for Medtronic is Walt Lillehei, unmet need of pacing of children that had post-surgical heart block, and Earl Bakken, who was an electrical engineer repairing medical equipment. And they met in the hall, and that resulted in a product, the first battery-powered pacemaker that was really the advent of Medtronic. And it's bringing those two together, two or more, but the clinical perspective and the engineering perspective so that it can turn a clinical vision into a technical reality is really the secret to success.
How do you see the connection between your world, where clinicians work hand by hand with engineers with respect to regulators? Do you see them as a hindrance that you have to tolerate, or do you think there's an opportunity to establish a dialogue that will accelerate innovation?
The regulators are critical partners in the journey, and we try to engage early with early discussions with the FDA or the different notified bodies so that they can be aware of what we're thinking about. We can get their advice on testing, of course, clinical trial design as we start thinking about that. And then the more formal engagements will begin. But we absolutely encourage people to engage early with the regulators because we're all in this together and trying to bring clinical value. And the earlier they engage in the journey, the more trust is built, the more familiarity they have with the products, and the more likely that we all can come together and have a successful launch and something that brings clinical value. And then ICI is an opportunity for regulators, industry, clinicians, innovators, all to come together, and especially in the Academy of Innovation and non-threatening environment. People can brainstorm, we can have sidebar conversations, and then it becomes very personal. It breaks down barriers, and I think can eliminate a lot of the anxiety, and importantly, eliminate mistakes along the way so that they can be successful along the journey. And if they determine that their approach is not one that provides unique clinical value, then have them tackle a new problem. So we've got a lot of serial innovators in this industry because everyone is so passionate that they may be working multiple companies at once, or if one fails or they have a successful exit, they're quickly on to the next one because it's more of a passion than a career for people.
What do you think about engaging patients into the dialogue to address their needs?
We engage both collegially at conferences as well as talk about how we can work together to bring more value to patients. And the patients more and more are becoming advocates for themselves, or at least their family members are. They're very well educated. They often have a strong sense as to what therapies will be most effective for them. And I guess Dr. Tochi can speak to that much better than I can. But they're playing a more and more important role as we go forward because people are wanting to participate in their healthcare. And it's kind of the way of the world now. So having patients at some of these conferences like ICI is also very helpful. And that I started in Medtronic 27 years ago as a design engineer. And what always makes it real more than anything else is talking to a patient that has one of your products implanted in his or her body that you designed. Like to me as an engineer, I feel no greater responsibility than to those patients to make sure we're giving them the best possible product or therapy.
What message will you bring to this year's Academy of Innovation?
I think although we're going through unprecedented times, in some ways we've all come closer together through some of the virtual networking and Zoom meetings. We're getting a lot of insight into people's lives and personalities that we wouldn't otherwise. We had a call earlier today where we have pets in the background, children running around, and I think it can serve to make us all more approachable. And it's so convenient now to make a connection with someone without having to jump on an airplane, go through airports. That's still incredibly important to be in the same room together. But this is teaching us how to interact at a distance and do it in a very efficient way. And so my colleagues and I laugh because we're probably busier than ever, because normally half of us are on an airplane or in a different time zone. And now we're all available all the time. And so we have so many more meetings. But I think our staff is probably closer than it's been in the past because of the situation, and these circumstances have caused us all to be creative in building relationships, and we work hard to do that.
Present circumstances have put us in a very unique, robust, and chaotic situation we need to deal with. How can we address this in terms of our relationship with patients?
We're all motivated to help patients, and collaboration is the key to success. And bringing in very diverse thoughts, perspectives, disciplines into the same room or the same conversation, even if it's on Zoom, will result in good things.